Randy. This is Ron. Welcome to our show.
That was deep.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
That was quite the intro.
Yeah.
You got little quarters up there?
Did we start the episode? Is this started?
That was okay. That was the attempt. But because of no one went along with it, Danny, you gotta do it again. But pause.
Are we
a little
clapping
bit.
again?
No. Pause a little bit.
All right, everyone clap.
Is this
No. You have to have a pause because I can't have sound and immediately start in.
Oh my gosh.
So quiet and then start when it's quiet. You whisper hello.
No, you didn't say anything.
Dude,
No,
Ron's
I
gonna
didn't
go
say
back
something.
home
I
if you don't
said
say something.
Where's Ron from?
What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Somewhat Good Conversations.
Nice.
This is Randy. This is Ron. We're talking about friendships.
Double R's.
Randy, you've already introduced yourself, but to our thousands of listeners, you want to introduce yourself again since we've seen such a dramatic increase since last episode?
Since,
Yeah.
the audience has grown so much that everybody doesn't,
It's
Actually,
A lot of people don't
significant,
And
hello to
a
both of you.
significant percentage.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Wait, time out. Was your
Time
phone
out.
in your pocket?
Yeah. The
That's
microphone's
okay.
right up here.
That's not gonna work.
Why?
That's gonna work
Because it's gonna
perfectly.
It
scratch.
could be muffled
gotta
and it
clap
could go.
again.
I think it's gonna scratch.
We gotta do it again. Run it
Wait,
back.
keep going.
No, we gotta run it back.
You got to run it back.
No,
No,
just
let's
kidding.
go.
Just kidding.
You know, both of our listeners are gonna stop listening. You know, keep going.
I think we're up to 3 now.
3?
50%
I
increase.
thought we had
I
like
think I followed
36
you,
on
Daniel,
one.
so I'm one of them.
Maybe we should just start this episode with just Randy. Introduce your friend to us. Give us
That's easier
your story.
because, okay, so this is my friend Ron. We've been friends literally our entire lives. We can talk about how that happened, but it's an uncommon thing, and we both find it valuable. I mean, we've been in touch literally our entire lives. And so
When you say entire lives, when did you meet? How old were you?
how old were you when you met your parents?
Oh gosh, 13.
We've
known each
12,
other longer.
Our parents, my parents went to the same church. They had a child nursery like they do with everybody, and he's only 5 weeks older than I am. Our parents put us in the nursery together. We grew up. I've known him literally my entire life. I don't ever remember meeting him. Not like there was a day where somebody introduced me to Ron. He has just always been my friend. He's always been in my life, same as my parents.
Ron.
So I've known him, like I said, my entire life. As long as you can know somebody. I've known
So we
him.
literally played together in the nursery before we knew that. So from my mom picking me up, she remembered seeing me playing with a kid, Randy, and then one of the other workers became a good friend of my mom's, who she's still friends with today.
Wow.
So she watched us in the nursery.
And how old are you guys now?
I'm older than he is.
But how much?
always been older than I
Right.
am.
Right. I turned 60 this year.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Randy, what age did you turn this year?
I turned 60 in 2 days.
So how much older is Ron?
5 weeks.
That's so petty.
Much older.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So one thing that's interesting is, would you say you guys were forced to be friends? How would you think about because now it's like very much a child-led way of thinking about like friendship. Like, oh, see who the kids want to play with, like let them pick friends. But you guys were kind of like, oh,
No, now it's forced because we have so much invested.
Okay. Right. You don't want to lose the investment. No, I don't think it was forced at all. I think there were
Obligation at this point.
other guys in our church that we grew up with that we're not in touch with anymore for various reasons. Tom Cairns, Steve Andrews, Scott Henry.
Good guys.
Yeah.
I
he
see.
knows all these people, but yeah, and honestly, growing up, our parents were very different styles. The church had a church camp that I went to with all the other kids, and Ron's folks didn't care Ron didn't care for the camp, and so he went to a different camp in the summer. He went to the ranch,
Yep.
and he did move away for a while because his dad changed jobs, and so he lived in
Olean, New York.
Olean, New York. Didn't your dad work in Dothan? Did you live in Dothan?
He worked in Dothan for 6 months, but that was a temporary job, so we didn't move there.
Okay.
So you've been friends for a long time.
Mhm.
What would you say is the common glue that has kept your friendship so consistent? Because you guys are just more than, I've got to know you just a little bit, just the last time you were visiting in California, but what was pretty clear is that it's not just because you guys have history, but because you have something far deeper in common. From your perspective, what has kept your friendship with such high quality, rather than just like the typical dude relationship where it's like you guys don't really talk about anything? And yeah, I sense there's a depth to your friendship. What has made that so?
Well, I'll say two things. Providence, for one thing. I think that the gift of a friend is something very special. So I think the Lord had everything to do with that. Jonathan was a gift for David in the Bible, and that's probably the best parallel. And the second thing, and I'm going to give Ron the credit here, is I'm not careful with friendships and careful to maintain contact. And Ron is. He's much more conscientious about that than I am. And so at times when we were in college and things and things get busy or you get other interests, Ron would reach out, and he was always reaching out to me. It was his idea after high school. Both of our families went on vacations, and it was his idea after high school that we should go on vacation together. Neither of us wanted to go with our families. You're 18 years old. That seems kind of weird. So he and I would plan a vacation every year.
Nice.
And we would just pick a city and map out some interesting things there. And we do share a lot of common interests for whatever reason. His son jokes now that we're the same person. And I mean, there's how many instances of us.
Have you
doing-
tried swapping to see if anyone notices? That'd be an interesting social experiment.
That would be disturbing if nobody noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget who called us Mutt and Jeff. And you guys are
thought
way
that was
too
you.
young to
Yeah.
understand.
No,
that
Mutt and
joke.
Jeff. I understand the reference.
Yeah,
Right.
Curly and Mo. Yeah.
They probably don't, but I understand it.
Mutt and Jeff were
Oh, you're
cartoon
really old,
characters, and
Mutt.
one was much taller than the other. They were cowboys, and one was much taller than
So
the
he's
other.
the mutt.
Yes.
The Jeff.
Yeah, the
I don't
cow-
know which one. I don't know which one was tall. I don't even know who was Mutt and who was Jeff. So I'm the tall, good-looking one, and he's the other one. So
That's not how I recall that. I have proof of that. He stole my line, is what he just did there.
Oh, did he?
Because that was at his wedding. I brought up that we are very similar. He's tall, and then as you obviously notice, I'm handsome.
You had your speech. My wife and I still talk about it at Randy's wedding. Randy and Naomi's wedding was like one of the best speeches. In my opinion, a little bit of a wild wedding in some sense of the other people's talking points.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you there? No, you weren't at
Please
the smoker
share.
at the time.
I want.
I was at a.
There's some comments about like, just
Other
like
wedding celebration?
just like a wedding ring, it symbolizes the marriage. You don't know where it begins or where it ends. Well, I guess we do know where this marriage begins. And it's just like a lot of like
jeez.
weird slip ups like that.
Wow.
Right? Kind of like who's that baseball player at
Yogi Berra.
Yeah, kind of like his lines where it's just like you're like, that's a new way of saying things.
Wait, you're saying that was Ron's speech?
No,
was
no,
that?
no, no,
no.
Oh, so what
Is
was the
the-
point you were getting at?
I was saying at the wedding,
Uh-huh.
a lot of people gave different speeches, had a lot of talks, but Ron's was like a different
Top tier.
shelf. Yeah.
Top tier.
Yeah.
What made it so great?
It's hard to like. I don't remember a lot of the details, but it was the sincerity,
Ron, could
the
you please
theological.
reenact the speech?
For the listeners at home, just trust Johnny that the speech was really good. Thank you. That was
don't
awesome
need any
addition
I
to the
think
podcast.
what made it special is that it was an extraordinarily rich speech because obviously I was married before and Yukiko passed away. So we were older. This was only 4 years ago. And so I was in my mid-50s. And so Ron and I already had more than half a century of friendship.
Wow.
And so he did, it took care and pulled things from those 50 years. And so it was very easy to do that. And it made it a very rich speech, or a rich talk. And it was things that he and I remember, inside jokes. And there's a kind of a, and we talked about this today, there's a certain pleasure to say something in front of a group of people when you know only you and one other person are getting it. You do that with your wife all the time. You'll say
Yeah.
something and you know only you two. Well, Ron and I have that much history
Wow.
that we can say things that we know only the two of us are going to fully understand
Crazy.
the concept. If I was to call Ron a ferret, then you guys would have no idea.
I mean, I do, but they probably don't. Well, can we get into that history a little bit? Can I ask more personal questions?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
You
you
can
don't
say
have to
no.
answer
Right,
it.
I might even answer.
I forgot how dry your humor is. I love it. One word that stands out to me is loyalty in friendships, and I think that friendships these days they can be very fickle. Can you give us an example or a story? I mean, I'm just drawing from my personal experiences because, like, Johnny and I have been friends for a long time. off the record, of course. But Johnny's one of my closest friends, and we have a lot of history. Not as nearly as much because, we're not elderly yet, but we, sorry, old.
Decrepit.
That's
Like,
a
Politically correct
like
way to decrepit
say it.
is
Yeah.
on the other
Adjective
side,
of
Yeah.
preference.
if you will.
Over the hill.
beyond the hill, under the grave.
Way over there.
right down near the bottom
Yeah,
again.
got it.
In
In
the
the
Oh,
valley.
man.
Coasting in the valley.
Nice.
Like this podcast. Can you give us an example or a story of maybe a part of your friendship that, like, maybe it was an argument or maybe it was
Dang
a
it,
difficult
that was a question
season
I
of
had.
life? Oh, I asked it first.
Unbelievable.
Because I think what's made Johnny and I's friendship so unique is the fact that we, like brothers, are able to, like, have some pretty intense disagreements or arguments, or maybe go through like a really difficult season. Maybe it's just one person going through a difficult season where that loyalty just proves to be so, like, adamant and important, in the same way that, like, well, if my brother wrongs me, or that he's my brother no matter what, the definition of who that guy is to me is my brother. That's how I view Johnny. Can you give me examples maybe, or a story for the listeners of how loyalty has been so prevalent through maybe a difficult situation?
I think there's so many. I'm really old. So,
As we established.
yeah. Well, no, but there are so many. I mean, I don't know. Disagreements are not as common as you would think. We are close to the same person. I don't know how many times I've gone to Ron's house and seen in his bedroom the same alarm clock that he picked out. Of all the alarm clocks in the world, he bought the same alarm clock that I did. And we'll share stuff like that. It's like, oh, I found this great deal on this widget or whatever. It'll be the same thing that he has. We have those same preferences because we had such a similar upbringing. And we grew up in Erie. It's a small town. There's not much to experience. So that even commonizes your experience more. You don't, your favorite movie theater was the movie theater. The mall was the mall. It's not like you're shopping in different areas. It's not, so there's that combination of the fact that, our upbringing was at the same time, in the same church, and in the same small town. So it just commonizes things even more. It's not Southern California where there's a lot of choices.
See, I'd go a different direction with that.
Go ahead.
I
Disagreement.
You're already disagreeing.
Perfect.
This is
Disagree.
an
Yeah.
example.
This is the
Yeah,
first
this is
Have it
an
live.
example.
Have it
This is
live.
it. Yeah, I'm out of here.
Work it
It's
out.
done. Yeah.
is I seek it. I seek disagreement. That's one of the reasons I come out here to spend time with Randy, is because I'm looking for the things that I can't see, and so I'm looking for a disagreement. It's like, this is what I see. We were discussing today. There's some challenges in my life, and I told him, I said, the problem is with me. It's character, but I'm really struggling with this. I don't know how to fix this. And so what I'm looking for is somebody to disagree, not say, oh, no, you're right, it's all good. And I'm also not looking for somebody to say, in a rude way, say you're an idiot and that isn't legitimate. What I'm looking for is somebody to legitimately disagree. On our way here, I said, I came here completely unprepared, which I'm not comfortable with. I would rather have talking points and know what I was going to discuss. And as we were talking, he said, that's what you need to bring up tonight. And the point was, I said, and it was, I presume it was God ordained, but I said, one of the things when I wrote the speech for his wedding, which honestly, this is the first I've heard has impact on people. But when I wrote the speech, there was the one thing that had an impact on me, because I wrote it and then read it and realized that it was powerful to me. It is still, is the importance that when we spend time together, it's iron sharpens iron, which we're familiar with the term. So when iron sharpens iron, you end up with filings on the floor, and you end up with pieces that you no longer have, and they get mingled with somebody else's pieces that they no longer have. And how important it is to leave that stuff behind. And so that is what I'm seeking in an actual argument, is having a healthy argument. Say, this is what I see, and have somebody else go, I don't know. I think you should consider it this way. And it may end up walking away and going, oh, well, I still see it the way I see it, and now I'm even more firm in my convictions because you couldn't convince me otherwise. And other times it's like, I guess I'm moving to the other side. So
I think it's pretty cool.
I seek
I love that. I think of most dudes' relationships. I mean, I imagine I'm speaking for everybody, where pride is obviously like something that we'd all, fall into. So it's like, for example, if you have like a perspective on something, the prideful thing to do is I'm just going to stay in it no matter what, and just not bring it up to anybody. I'm just going to be the man that kind of navigates through my life alone, because I'm a man. That's what manly men do. They are isolated. They're a lone wolf.
Sigmas.
Sigmas, sure. I would say the world's definition of what a manly man looks like is someone that just is able to do something on their own and like carve their own path. And in my experience, like that's where that is, not only is that scary, but it's unwise, because I know there are times in my life where I've just gone, nope, this is the way I'm going to do it because I'm the man, master of my fate and captain of my soul, and I don't go to anybody else and like seek counsel from like my peers. And so, I mean, I'm thankful for the times in my life where I've gone to someone like Johnny, or even these two guys with like even recent things that are going on in my life, where I'm just like, hey, this is my decision, this is what I want to do, I'm pretty confident in it, but like maybe you see something that I don't see. And so often I'm able to kind of come away from a conversation, maybe it's not a shift of perspective like you said, but like, and you might have that like more firm conviction, which is great to come from a conversation where you're either going to be convicted or you're going to be confirmed. Nice. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. That has added value with the length of the friendship, because you come apart or you come away from a conversation with Ron. I know that if there's anybody who could convince me otherwise, it would be Ron, because he knows me better than anybody else. And so when he says, "Have you considered?" that carries more weight than some, a recent acquaintance or a recent friend who says, "Oh, well, maybe it's this," because I know Ron has this long history with me. He knows me better than anybody. So when he says, well, have you considered this, then it would be foolish of me not to consider it. And if I consider it and say, yeah, I think he's still out in the weeds there, then that confirms it even more. Like he said, that confirms it, because if anybody could convince me, it would be Ron. There would be nobody who would know me better than that.
So we wanted to bring this conversation. You were the one who introduced this idea. And one thing I'm interested in this conversation is, and this whole podcast in general, is things that I think men need to grow in and do more of, right? What is your case of why men need to have long-term friendships like you have? Obviously, God blessed you with it, but why would you argue that, no, this is something every man should seek in his life, to have a multi-decade-long relationship with another man?
When on the ride down, we were talking about a challenge that Naomi and I have right now. Her nephew was recently married, but he's struggling in his marriage. And so he reaches out for help or for advice, but he and his family, there's no Christian history there. So how difficult it is to give advice when there's no standard. You can show Ephesians 5, but those, like Ron said, those are just good ideas. There's no standard. So Naomi and I talked through this and decided to start with the idea to counsel him that everything in his life he learned, all the important things he learned from outside of himself. You go to school, you learn from teachers, you learn from professors. You go to driving school, your father teaches you how to ride a bike. All of the things you do come from outside of you. So we would encourage him, just as a young man who's new in marriage, that the answers aren't inside of him. He's not going to have the right instincts in marriage. And so to seek advice out of him, and certainly we're going to get him a copy of a Bible in Japanese. But he also has a marriage counselor. He has other married men in his life in Japan. And I can't speak to him because he doesn't speak English.
For the listeners that don't know, you are married to a Japanese lady.
Yeah.
And that is why we're talking about Japanese people.
Right. But the concept, that the help for Hiroyuki was the recognition that the answer is not going to be inside of him. And I think that's the value of friendships, especially friendships and guys who know you, is because they provide an outside perspective. Just like Scripture gives you God's perspective of your soul and of your spiritual condition, because it's a perspective from God, a trusted friend gives you that same perspective.
But what's the difference between that and if I just change up my friend group every 5 years or so?
Or a guy that's just like lightly
subtle connected because he's still going to small group maybe or something like that. But like, there's a distinction between a man who has that a long-term relationship versus a guy who still would say, well, I get all of that. Randy, everything you're saying, I get that just by talking to my coworker. Like, what's the difference between that and...
I would argue that you don't, because there's no depth of knowledge there. Okay, Ron remembers me in high school. He can, we talk about how guys insult each other. In fact, today we went to the Reagan Ranch, and when we went in, they asked us if we wanted a picture. And Ron said, I don't want a picture with him. He's ugly. And the guy's response was, you guys must have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay? It's that allows you, it gives you more access, it gives your opinion more weight. And it's not the changing out of friends every 5 years. It's that trusted friend. And I know that Ron loves me because he's been my friend for 60 years. So even if he had something harsh or difficult to say, I know where it would be coming from.
Wow.
He wasn't just being a jerk. And that is even more reinforced over 6 decades of friendship. So
Is there anything, Luke asked kind of a similar question, but listen to you guys talk. Is there anything, if there's any one thing other than obviously Providence and, you kind of said Ron is the one who kept reaching out when maybe you were lacking in doing that. Is other than those things, is there any one thing you both did or you both saw in your friendship that kept it so deep and like either a shared
Other than history, maybe?
other than history? I don't know if you love baseball as much as he does. I have no idea. I don't think that's possible. I've never met someone who loves baseball as much as you.
Yeah, I confessed
Yeah.
that sin a long time ago.
Is there any one thing that comes to your guys' mind for both of you, right? That maybe you would agree or disagree on that worked to keep their friendship
I
going?
think the big challenge with relationships is, of course, it's a Venn diagram. And it is finding a Venn that has a very large crossover section. And then it also has appropriate edges that are different. And not only is it the size of it, but then it is the quality of the stuff that's in that center. When we traveled together intentionally, and we did that, and it was only 7 years that we did it. And
I just want to say that's funny because only 7 years is probably longer than most people's friendships in general.
Yeah.
Right.
It went from when we graduated high school until when Ron got married. That was the
so that was the gap.
yeah.
And it was, I remember specifically having some conversations with it because I always plan our trips for my family. And I guess that's where it started. And I looked and it's like, oh, I'd like to do this. I had asked Randy. He'd like to do that too. I'd like to do it. No, he'd like to do that too. So I did a lot of the planning of those vacations because it was things that I would like. But I also remember very specifically telling him, which I don't know where I came up with it. It sounds like something that somebody older would say now. But I remember saying, we're going to spend some time together, and there's an opportunity for friction. So I just need you to be honest. If I want to stop and eat here and you don't want to stop and eat there, I just need you to tell me that. And it was very obvious. It's like, well, of course I would. And so one of those first common things as young adults was we would travel, which meant we are in a car, which is a great place for conversation because you don't have to make eye contact. And so I would drive. I think it's because at the time I had the better car, so I would drive, he would navigate. I did much of the planning, but it was because that Venn existed, and that's the part I can't take credit for it. This is the first I heard that I was the one that reached out. I don't even know that I could take credit for that. So it wasn't, building this intentional, okay, I've got to make sure I do my part, and then he's got to make sure he does his
It's
part.
natural.
There's just that very natural, we both have a love of history and just a general understanding that I've come to is you can't understand anything until you understand everything. And so if you don't start to pursue something, you don't understand anything. Nothing makes sense. And so we both like mechanical things. We both like American history. And so it becomes pretty easy to say, well, we're on a limited budget, and here's where we are. How far can we go? And so our first trip was to Detroit. We went to Dearborn to go to the Henry Ford Museum. And, that is the collection of American history. And, of course, there are cars there and just great stuff that you can read some of it and you can see some of it. And
It's a vacation I did. I had worked the night before and packed in a hurry, and we're like halfway to Detroit. And Ron's like, "So how much money did you bring?" I really quickly told him, I said, "Yeah, none."
I think it was more like this. That is the common response. None.
None.
I left my money on the counter.
Oh man.
Yep. And this is before there were ATM machines
Obviously,
everywhere. I mean, this is 83. Was when this would have been.
Didn't have credit cards. I had a
Right,
Sears
no.
credit card.
Right. Nobody had credit cards. Luckily, he brought enough. We made it work, and it wasn't a full week, but it was just just culture shock. I think the whole vacation was $140.
It's impressive.
That was the hotel room, the gas, the food, and everything else. And then so we said he said, "All right, so you owe me like $70." All right, so I brought it to work the next day. I got the cash out and I took it up to work. He was working at a different McDonald's than I was at the time, and so I took it in, but you were busy. So I gave it to an assistant manager and said, "Oh, I'll put it in the safe for Ron." And I never heard anything about it.
Oh, no.
And it was how long did it take you to ask me for that money?
I don't remember this story.
Couple of months.
I'm older than you are, I
You
guess.
still haven't asked.
It was like a couple of months.
Yeah, but
when
it's 70
finally
with
at
inflation.
church, right?
Might
At
be a
church,
lot
he
of money.
says, "I don't want to be a pain, but did you ever pay me back for vacation?" And I was like, "I gave that to your assistant manager. It's in your safe," and it was still in the safe there at
Oh,
McDonald's.
Maybe it's still in there to this day.
No, we're even. I paid you.
It's worth 25 cents.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
But yeah, there were. It helps that. I think what you guys, you know me as a mid-50s guy.
Almost 60.
Yeah. Well,
Brutal.
still mid-50s for another 48 hours. It's much more of a finished product than it was when I knew Ron. And there is a sense in which Ron and I are both rather introverted. And so there's not, social interaction is very uncomfortable. I get exhausted at like serving coffee or donuts or just that exhausts me. Small groups is different. It's a smaller group of people, but any large group of people, LDG is exhausting. It's just too big of a group of people. Prayer night is a lot of people now when we meet in the auditorium or in the sanctuary. It's huge and it's overwhelming. So I need a nap. I frequently take a nap on Sunday afternoons when I get home from church, just because that much interaction with people. Not that it's bad, but it exhausts me.
Yeah.
And
Spends
so
your battery.
right, and right, same thing with Ron. Being an introvert, it's the thought that stimulates you, not the interaction with other people. And so the one-on-one conversations was a place where we could feel at home. And so I much worked on that by the time you guys met. So I was very awkward and backward and shy in high school. It was just not, and so Ron was the one constant. It was a friend and somebody I could trust, and it was a social aspect that didn't exist anywhere else.
And I think it's important to really define introversion too, because you said introverted and shy. And I
okay.
think
Sorry about that.
No, I think it's important to recognize that that they're two different things. And introversion is really just where you get your energy, and it's being around people or not being around people. And so I get my energy being in very small groups. So it is going to be friends with a lot of depth, as opposed to, it's very few friends with a lot of depth. So an inch wide and a mile deep is my preference, as opposed to a mile wide and an inch deep. And so somebody on the other extreme of extroversion likes the mile wide and an inch deep. Shy is insecurity, and I have my share of that as well. And insecurity shows up different people. So you could be introverted and not shy, and you could go to the other side and be insecure and say, I'm insecure and therefore I'm loud and verbose and have to be the center of attention. Or it could be shy or anything in between. But either way, spending time with a lot of people it expends energy, and it's exhausting.
I think of the word loneliness, a word that probably not a lot of dudes that want to be tough would admit that they feel from times, and it's not exclusive, obviously, to introverts or extroverts. It's anyone can have loneliness. I not to make it too big of a side point, but like I told someone recently, the most lonely time in my life was when I first got married, because there was just a level of I wasn't really talking to my friends at a depth that I should. And I didn't think it didn't really have, and just being married, that transition of life is just like you're spending a lot more time with one person rather than your time with a lot of different people. But when it comes to loneliness, maybe we can encourage our listener,
They're
whoever
lonely.
that might be,
They're super lonely too.
anyone who might be listening, who struggles with loneliness. They feel like they can't really connect with people. They want to have friends. They see it, whether it's on social media or in real life. They recognize that, man, those two people are really close. I want to be a part of that. What would be some practical advice you'd give to someone? You know, I know that you guys maybe weren't necessarily intentional with like, let's plan to have this like multi-decade relationship where that's really deep. Like it just kind of happened by God's grace.
It was already a decade and a half old before we realized it.
Yeah. So it's like obviously God is good and like providing that, but
Yeah.
looking back and seeing God's provision, or maybe whether you're ignorant or otherwise, what are some practical tips or wisdom that you can give to specifically a man that wants to have close relationships but just hasn't been able to find them?
Well, I think you want to
That
say
was
something, Ron?
profound. Yeah, he thought.
Yeah. Go ahead and answer, Ron.
You're profound.
Man, it took me hours to write that question.
How do you make friends? I don't think you can make those things happen. I think what you do is you create the opportunities.
Okay.
And that's the reality is you may even intentionally create those opportunities so that they can happen. But trying to make them happen, it doesn't take long. You cross the line, you're a stalker. And I think that's illegal in California also,
Yeah,
isn't it?
And California's
Yeah, it
a
is.
little loosey.
Only if you
It's
get
a
caught.
little- yeah, less illegal, but it really is. And I said, you know, in a car is a great place for conversation, and I don't think that can be understated. That is, that's where I have very profound conversations. I had one that sticks out in my mind, which would be off topic with this, but we have 3 kids, and I wanted to foster a relationship with the kids before they were teens, knowing that if I didn't have money in the bank, if I didn't have relationships in the bank when they're teens, I might not be able to afford the things they take out,
Wow.
their withdrawals. And so I wanted to make sure, and so I intentionally spent time with each of the kids, and we came up with a Dad and Me Day. And it was a day that we would do whatever they wanted to do. And after spending a day with my one daughter, we were driving home, and it's dark, and so we couldn't see each other, and she's sitting in the front seat, of course, and she said, "Dad, how old do you have to be to like boys?" And
42.
And it was one of those wonderful things that I could not corner her and tell her from a dad's perspective how important those things are.
Yeah.
But she asked me in that opportunity. And I thought, what a wonderful thing that just kind of happened in a way. And all I did was create the opportunity. And it didn't happen every time. And my other daughter and I, we didn't have that conversation, but we had great conversations visiting various places and doing things for a day. So I think it's the importance of creating those opportunities so that good things can happen. And if you create a bunch of them, sometimes something does. You know, and even today, I said, you know, Randy, he said, you know, what kind of things do you want to do when you come out? And I said, today I told him, I said, you know, I just randomly told you I want you to drive me for hours to go up to Santa Barbara because there's something I want to see there. I said, I don't know if that's going to be worth it or not. And Randy's comment was, what, we're going to spend the day together in the car? Essentially, how bad could that be? So the we will tell you the highlight was going to Santa Barbara. But, you know, you can make up your own mind about that.
I want to talk about that a little bit too, because at least in the small group that I'm a part of, and I feel like a lot of the small groups that we're a part of, the biggest thing that people struggle with is like creating those opportunities. And I feel like the reason why we have so many troubles with that is because of technology. Right? Everybody with text messaging, with FaceTiming or something like that, kind of mistake having these deep opportunities to connect with something that is extremely shallow and not even face to face in front of the other person. So the fact that you guys have been friends for 60 plus years, I mean,
Plus by a couple of weeks.
plus by like, I guess not 60.
That's so
50
59 plus years.
59
50
years and
years.
363 days,
There we go.
not to be exact.
W.
But there's a lot of
364,
things,
it's a leap year.
and I think that we talked about this in the last episode in terms of like worship music. Like we want to be very cautious of stuff that's happening recently. I think that we need to be very cautious about stuff that's happening with the phone. You guys kind of developed this relationship before all that technology existed. What were some things that you did to kind of stay clear of, you know, letting this ruin a relationship, or how did you utilize technology to continue to develop a relationship? Because I feel like we're kind of in this situation where a lot of our friends, there's a high likelihood that people are going to have to leave, particularly the state of California, just because we can't afford it. So what advice would you guys give, not only being long friends, but long distance friends?
That's a great
in
question.
order to maintain it.
Yeah, just to give context, just if people aren't familiar,
Yeah.
right? Randy, of course, lives in Southern California, and Ron lives in Pennsylvania, right? So that's the distance of the relationship.
Two different cultures and also very far away.
About 2,000 miles. Yeah.
Wow.
The culture difference is not so great between Ron and I, because we grew up together.
Yeah.
So but and the fact that I live in California. Well, it's boy, so many answers.
Car shows.
Those are the things we share in common.
But I think
That
those
are valuable.
events, though, don't they fill up the
making
calendar?
the effort. Yes, it's flying. You know, it's on my calendar. You know, for perpetuity is that the second, third week in February, I'm going to go fly back, and we're going to go to the car show. That's something we've been doing for 35 years.
35.
Yeah, 35 years. I think the car show itself is only 42 years old, which, I mean, that's a long-term event. But the
I
fact
haven't
that
been
we've
alive
gone
for
there,
35 years.
Yeah, that's sad.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. This is just crazy.
No, but that it's those sort of, it is putting the effort into carving out that time, and it has to be FaceTime. It is the time with each other.
For the kids
I'm
that
confused. Not the app FaceTime, like actual FaceTime.
Sorry.
There's an app called FaceTime.
What's an app? What's an app?
Appetizers.
Yeah, an appetizer.
Holy cow, that was funny, Johnny.
Thanks, man.
Unbelievable. Okay.
Unbelievable.
No, but it is intentionally carving out that time. And like I said, Ron has been, I think, over the history of our friendship, more intentional about that. But each thing the Lord has brought into our lives has been, we've used it to that advantage because the friendship is important to us. Ron he lives in Pennsylvania, and that's home, but the culture there is not, he doesn't fit in to that culture. He's not, and so he actually fits in California better. He's got a lot of family and things and ties that keep him in Pennsylvania for good reasons. But to come out to California for a while, especially, I mean, he talked to his wife today. It's snowing back there, and he's not a fan of snow. I'll tell you that. So the fact that we are this far apart gives him an opportunity to come out. He comes out at least once a year, usually twice or more, just to spend time with us and invest in the friendship. And so it's that intentional investment in just the time with Ron and I. And so, yeah, we spent 6 hours in the car today, driving and talking. We're going to go, Max is going with us tomorrow, but we're going to go down to San Diego, go to the Maritime Museum, Star of India, the sub. I got the USS Dolphin down there.
Yeah.
And we're going to a Cars and Coffee in San Clemente in the morning. So, yeah.
And I kind of want to hear from you, Ron. I know that you were about to speak, but I feel like in a lot of times when people move and they kind of create that distance between the relationships, the reason why things kind of fail is because they try so hard to keep up at the same rate that they did when they were together, and then they just get exhausted and be like, oh, our relationship can't maintain. Is that something that you try and do? Do you try and keep a consistent cadence of communication, or is it literally just like we won't talk to each other in between the entire year, we just know it's the car show?
We have one conversation.
Oh, I love this point. This is one of my favorite points about the friendship.
And it's just an interrupted conversation, and so it essentially just starts with "and," because when we see each other, it is, oh, and I was thinking about, and we just carry that on. And my wife even noticed that. She made a reference to that before I left. So I mean, I just look at the technology. I see that as a positive. So it allows me to send him a text. Was it yesterday? I don't know what day this is anymore.
Friday.
Because I'm jet lag or fly. No, I don't have jet lag. My mom gets jet lag when she flies north and south. I get it when I fly. Period. There's a joke.
I got
that
a couple
don't
questions.
know.
I don't want to make Josh feel bad for not getting it.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Time zone.
Yeah,
There's no
time
time
zone.
zone
You can only
difference north
get
and
jet
south.
lag when you're flying.
You can still get jet lag flying.
Right, but you don't get it when you're flying north south.
You can get jet lag in the same time zone.
Yeah, freaking-
Quote Josh
okay.
White.
Right. Yeah, you have to look
I
that
don't
up.
travel.
Look that up in the
right.
World Wide Internet.
Ever.
When I'm done.
I
We
go
haven't
to
looked up in the
Thailand, sorry.
encyclopedia. But,
What's that?
So, like, do you think of your texts? Like, do you guys text and call on the phone, and like that's where you have conversation, or is like this keeps a little bit of going, but our main time is in person?
it's completely unintentional from my perspective. It was snowing when I Thursday. I worked and then I drove to Pittsburgh and then flew here. And on my way somewhere, wherever it was, Wednesday or Thursday, it was like whiteout conditions on the throughway, right by the exit where his parents live. So I took a picture and then went, oh, I got to get one at his exit. So I'm driving very safely in my car and cruise, and got a picture of the sign and just sent that. And then I got
After you pulled over, obviously, to send it.
in a very safe way. And then I got a text back that,
Allegedly. Yeah.
that said, Randy sent you a text of a car in sunshine. Would you like to respond?
I happened to be driving when he sent me the picture, and so I thought, okay, well, here's where I'm driving.
After you pulled over.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
of
know,
course.
I
yeah.
think you,
Following all the safety
I think you
laws.
give me too much credit for the intentionality. I don't know whatever intentionality is. I don't know I'm doing that. I'm not in a pursuit of I haven't talked to him, so I better reach out. I would hope that would be what my spiritual pursuit would be as well. That it's not it's time to call Randy, so I better set some time aside and do my devotion to Randy or do my devotions or it's things that I do remind me of him or that he would understand it, and it's usually some sarcastic line that very few people would understand, and I'll send him a text. And so I like the technology for that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the wisdom behind it. Because I mean, I grew up in Florida, lived in California, lived in the Midwest, and now I'm back in California. So I have friends a lot in different parts of the country. So I kind of have that same aspect. It's like people ask, how do I maintain the relationships? And it's like, well, I don't talk to them except for one time a year, and then we just spend the entire year catching up on other stuff. And you could argue it's like a mile wide, inch deep versus other things. But I think that's the good thing about it. It's like you're not trying to force anything. It's all very natural. It's only the things that you guys would get. And even in that very specific, particular thing, like the picture of the exit, like nobody else is going to understand that. It's only
Right.
deepening the relationship.
Can I add something to that? Because I'm just gonna pull from our friendship.
Careful.
I do think there does need, for maybe practical advice for other people, that there should be a level of like intentionality that maybe if you're feeling like I haven't reached out to that person. Now there's some people that are just like naturally they just are great at connecting and that's just who they are, and there might be some people that just maybe who don't have a friendship that just like they don't think to reach out unless they're like in the proximity where they like run into somebody. I'm kind of like that. I don't think to like, it's not that I don't care about my friends. I don't care about other people that live in other states, but I'm just so one-track minded that like, if I don't see Johnny every single weekend, it's like, I may not remember to even like text. Now that's a flaw because it's like, I should care in the same way for my wife. I mean, obviously I should be seeing her every day. But it's like, there does need to be intentionality depending on like the difficulties that you have of like reaching out, until it turns into a habit. So I was just going to finish by saying like, you moved to Chicago for a short period of time. And like, I think we did a pretty good job at staying connected.
We did great.
But that took a lot for me to like remember to do that and like reach out.
But this is to me the interesting point, like remembering. I really like what Ron said. Ron, we're going to keep you. We're going to send Randy back because your quotes today
You're more
have been
handsome,
crushing.
like Randy said.
Yeah,
Or-
at that point.
Better
But,
beard, too.
But yeah, better arms.
But Howard's are.
If no one knows, Randy doesn't.
Wait,
show
wait,
his
wait,
arms.
wait.
So
Ron,
is Randy's arm.
have you seen Randy's arms?
Oh yeah, I've known him enough that I can
You got like
keep it
full
covered.
sleeves?
For those who don't know, Randy never shows his arms.
I don't wear short sleeve. I don't do short sleeve.
But,
it's not a thing.
That was such a fun.
something Ron said, I think, is like profoundly important about Christianity is that if my relationship with God is something like, oh, I guess I gotta reach out to God, oh, I should probably read my Bible, that signals a very problematic relationship that you have with God. Because that implies it's not a joy, right? The first command, so to speak, I guess not the first command, but the first question in Westminster, right, is what's chief in a man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And you're failing at your very first purpose is enjoying God. And I think this is maybe to Ron's point, and Ron, you could add to this, but yes, it does feel like work at some level, but I sense, and maybe I'm speaking too much about our friendship here, I think that I feel, again, I gotta be careful here, but I think people know what I mean if they have a good, deep friendship, is if I'm not hanging out with Luke, I feel like there's a part of me missing. There's a part, it's like,
No homo.
right? By hanging out with Luke, there's a part of me associated with him that I won't be able to enjoy and have and participate in without that friendship. And I imagine you guys are so ingrained. You kind of use the idea of iron sharpen iron and wood and the chips falling off, metal shards, and then you push those aside. But as it clashes, there's a level of like his blade, right? His spirit has impacted yours. Even Dave and Jonathan and stupid liberals who can't see anything beyond a homosexual relationship, which is foolishness. But there's a level where souls could be knit between two friends. And I feel like...
And again, no homo.
And I feel like that has been something that I've noticed that, yes, I kind of like, oh, I need to reach out to Luke. But not in a sense of like, to be a good friend, I should reach out to Luke. It's like, I haven't talked to him. Like, I'm missing out in that part of my life.
100%.
Yeah, I don't reach out of obligation, and maybe I reach out because it's something that I need. I don't know that I'm doing it for Randy's benefit, and maybe he benefits from it as well. But it is it's one of the hardest things that I do is to come out here because I leave my wife behind, and we share that every time. It is like, oh, I hate this part, the part where I leave her. And she has said the same thing, is she just hates it when I leave. And she knows it's so important because she benefits from me being a better person. And it is one of the things that I benefit from is adjusting my perspectives and reinforcing things that I should know or already know and considering other perspectives. So when I am better, she benefits from that. But it's very painful to leave her behind. We've been married 35 years, and we dated 5 years before that, and she came from a broken family, and I came from there were a lot of disappointments in the family way I was raised, and so having substantial relationships have become very important to me, obviously, and so it's very difficult to leave Deb so we can benefit in a sense. But it's also really important for me to spend time with somebody who understands me. The people who understand. It's funny, the thing I most commonly hear with people casually is, "Oh, Ron, you're really hard to understand." And we talked about this again today, and I said, I'm just an open book. I think I'm completely open. I'm honest with people. I don't hide a lot of things, and people look and go, "Oh yeah, but what do you really mean?" You go, "Well,
What I just said.
that's what I really mean." "Oh yeah, you're really hard to understand." Okay, I don't have those challenges. I don't have those challenges with Deb. I don't have those challenges with Randy, and so it's very freeing that I can relax, which also allows me at times to say things that are foolish and that I regret. But my guard isn't up to go, oh boy, if I say that, that's going to get Randy going, and then he's not going to, and so I'm not guarded. And so I still need to be responsible in what I say, but I don't have to be guarded.
Yeah.
I would just say this is a very, very good conversation. I want to shift it
Somewhat,
a little bit and talk about something that, probably be obvious why I want to talk about it. I love humor. I love joking around, and I think that's something. It's funny because like Sydney, my wife, was always is just like dude, the things that you say to your guy friends, like, are they not like offended? Are they not like, man, you're just like really mean to them, or you joke around too much? I think that he walked away and was probably really offended. And I'm just like,
I am actually offended most of the time.
yeah, and that's intentional. But like my friends, I'm talking about. But it's like there's a distinct flavor with the relationships that I have that are my boys, my dudes, that like I don't share with. I mean, I definitely don't share with other women, but like my wife, it's just it. My wife and I joke, but it's not the same way that like I joke around with my boys. And so,
Of course not.
I would love to kind of steer the conversation into you guys. Obviously, I mean, you literally made a joke earlier at the Reagan Library or Memorial, wherever you were. Ronald Reagan's that president, right?
No, the actor.
The actor. The actor.
Isn't that pretty funny?
That was very funny, actually. But it's like you're joking around like, oh, man, he's so ugly, right? And it's like, oh, you have a good laugh over it. He's not offended by it. I would say one of the key defining characteristics of Johnny and I's friendship, and I even think contributes to, like, the closeness of it, is the fact that we're able to, you know, for lack of a better term, bust each other's balls like how dudes do. Sorry for the vulgar language.
We lost one of our viewers.
Shoot.
I lost one of
I
my
should
balls.
just back up.
Sorry, this is a weird podcast. Girls don't listen to this, right?
No.
Okay, good. Why is humor so important in your friendship? Or, if you don't think of it that way, in what ways do you appreciate joking around that you feel like just makes friendship just so much more enjoyable?
I think you asked two questions there. Okay,
I did.
And there's two topics. One is the element of humor, and the other is the insults, the jabs that guys do. How guys bond. You know, and the classic line is, you know, men bond by insulting each other, but they don't mean it, and women bond by complimenting each other, and they don't mean it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Oh,
it's
which one's worse?
Well, let's move on.
Flattery?
yeah.
Yeah, flattery. One I could say is a sin.
Oh, burn, girls. Sorry.
No, and I think, and in It's Good to Be a Man, Doug Wilson talks about this, and this is how men test for strength. You want your guys, you want your friends to be strong, and you can't be, you don't have an arm wrestling contest every time you do, but it's more important to be emotionally strong. And one sign of emotional strength is being able to take a joke, being able to take an insult, being able to admit your failings, admit that you're acting like an idiot, admit that you've made mistakes, and all of that comes when you test your friend by calling him an idiot. And if he gets offended and walks away, well, you really need him for a friend. He's not really that mentally tough. He's just, if he gets offended and stomps off, I think, I really need anybody like that in my life anyway. So guys are constantly testing for strength, and by insulting one another. And
great answer.
That's a signal that your friend is strong, that your relationship is strong. You know, and you can do this to some extent with your wife. You know,
Sure.
Naomi and I can trade things, but it is not at the same level with Rhonda. And you don't talk
I would
to
say
Johnny.
I test the temperature of kind of where we're at with like very light, silliness. But
What was
obviously
the
not in the
quote
same way.
about offending your wife? Say.
Well, something effective. Every guy thinks that his life will be better if he makes his wife miserable. And when it doesn't work, we simply try harder.
I don't understand that. Am I too dumb to understand that?
Apparently,
one more
but
I'm leaving. I'm offended by that, which means I'm a bad friend.
I think we
What do we learn?
all do jabs at our wife, and we will do things that go, "Oh, this will get her. This will get her goat. I'm going to do it anyways."
Oh yeah,
Thinking that if we make her miserable, that'll make our lives better. And then when it doesn't work, we simply try harder.
Yeah.
it's like scaring her. She's like, "Stop! I really genuinely don't like it when you do that."
go, okay,
It's
well,
funny.
next time
Yeah.
I'm going to try harder.
I'm going to.
It's defeated.
make it
We know it's
horrible.
going to make our lives better, even though there's every bit of evidence to the contrary.
So we
we're
said,
still
right.
yeah,
so we
we're
said
committed
that
to it.
is the perfect picture of faith. We take that on faith, although the evidence says otherwise. But we hold that tenet of faith. Yeah, but if I make her miserable, I know my life is going to be better. So then we just try harder.
That's funny.
But yes, but our relationships with wives are much different than the relationships with each other. We're much harsher because we want stronger. The guy friends in our lives should be stronger than our wives. They're the weaker vessels, and so yeah, it's that constant testing for strength. Humor is a different thing, and we talked about that today because we were at the Reagan Ranch Library, and it is the focus is more on the man. And he bought the ranch after he was governor, between when he was governor and when president. So he bought the ranch because he loved horses. He loved being away from Los Angeles, and he was a writer. But Reagan was known for his humor, and there was a lot of that in the museum. Just his jokes, and even Nancy and Maureen. There were interviews with them where you could see how his humor had affected them. But humor is it's an efficient way to communicate because it's disarming. You know, they interviewed who was the governor before Reagan?
Brown.
Yeah,
Jerry Brown.
Schwarzenegger.
Not Jerry Brown. It was the other one.
Is it Pollard? Was it? I thought.
Could have been. Yeah.
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 It was
Anyway,
Brown flushed it down.
it was yeah.
That was the campaign. That was the campaign.
That's very funny.
That wasn't
That's
funny.
hilarious.
Man, humor.
Well, that was-
Again.
It sounded
Right.
funny.
But Brown had respect for Reagan as a person because of, in large part, because of his sense of humor, because of his ability to communicate. I don't agree with him, but he's a sincere man and he's an honest man. And I think humor is disarming in a sense. And so
It's also a great measure of intelligence, I think.
As we just
That
saw.
came up because my wife and I had asked Randy one time, why is your family funny? Because I've spent time with his mom and dad, and Tracy is a little bit younger than us, and her birthday is right around mine, and Joel is quite a bit younger, and Dan's in the middle. And I said, why is your family funny? And that was Randy's answer was, he said, we were raised to read and to have an understanding of things. And so often humor isn't telling a joke with a punchline. Yeah, and it isn't just puns, and both of those can be funny, but it is commonly, unless they're abused, but what commonly it is it's something that only makes sense or is only funny if you understand it. A friend of mine, I used to work with a guy, and he had told me a story of something that he found funny, and I did it off the cuff. We got a newspaper, and we worked different shifts, and we had a newspaper, and I saw there's an ad there was for a farm and country type place, and I looked on the front, and it had an ad for cracked corn, and so I wrote what I thought was obvious. I put a Post-it note and just put "I don't care" and stuck it on there. But the concept was, it wasn't just that I
Before you
wrote some.
don't explain the joke, because I want people to guess if they.
okay.
Right, but it was you had to understand the context, and so it does require a certain understanding of life. You can't really joke with somebody that's this big yet, not till they have some intellect. And so I think it is very much one of those iron sharpens iron, is to wait, he said something, and then you're immediately going, is that funny or not? And the quicker you get to that, I guess that there's a certain friendship bond that allows you to get there quicker.
So you wrote on the Post-it, what would you write on the Post-it again?
I don't care.
Okay. That's funny. That's genuinely funny. Jimmy Crack Corn, I don't care.
Oh, thanks, Nick, for
What's
proving that you understand it.
What's the rest
Whoa.
I don't know.
Jimmy Crack Corn, I don't care.
Jimmy Crack
Bye.
Master's gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Wait,
Actually,
is
never
that-
mind.
Wait a minute.
I thought it was Mistress.
Wait.
Ugh.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Well, to clarify,
What's the-
mistress is just a woman master,
To clarify.
right? It doesn't have to be like related.
I
to...
think it has to be.
Okay.
I don't
Is it mistress
care.
or
But,
master?
so-
Either way,
Wait,
I don't
but-
care.
Sorry, I was gonna say I do want to do something
I was gonna do something at the
to
end.
end the podcast.
Oh, that's what I was gonna do too.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I was gonna say like, what's one thing that you want?
Oh, okay.
No, I mean you tell me. We say both of them. Which one?
No. I'll save it for the very end.
Okay.
So this is the time to wrap it up.
So I was just thinking, as we're getting near the end, I think it'd be interesting. You guys obviously have wisdom upon us. That's why we kind of did this podcast, to learn from people who have more wisdom than
We have
us.
some wisdom for you now. Yeah.
No.
That would be we're gonna try.
When you look at men in the church,
Tell you a thing or two.
again, you got, I'm not saying this is the number one thing, but like,
Yeah.
what's something that you like? Men need to grow up in this way, mature in this way. What's one thing you're like? The men of the church need more of this or less of this, but what's something they need to mature? And it doesn't have to be your only thing. Just a word of advice or caution?
I hope he's not looking at me for this one.
Randy?
Build the relationships outside of church. But build the relationships outside of the church context. You can't have a relationship when you're with your family, and going to church. Worshiping together is great.
Yeah.
That's not a relationship. It's the things outside. It's the men's, the retreat. The
So you're
time
saying
in-
you're
time in
saying
Palm Springs.
anything outside of Sunday, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm saying, the one-on-one is help. To develop the friendship is going to be a one-on-one because it gives you time to talk, and it gives you time to share, not in a group.
Yeah.
And so, I develop the relationships outside of the church context.
That's why we build poker night.
Yeah.
Kind of to your not looking at like not looking at each other. I think men build best relationships when it isn't like
Activity.
Yeah, it's not like a let's talk. It's
Yeah.
a let's do something that facilitates easy conversation, like poker,
Yeah.
Working out.
working out.
It's funny because much of what we've talked about today is a summary of what Randy and I have talked about recently, and even talked about today, in preparation, I guess, unintentionally.
So you did prepare.
I guess I did.
Can't get away from it.
But one of the things that I brought up to him is the title of the book that I'm never going to write is The Impossible Balance. And it was a concept that I came up with that gave me great comfort, being a husband and father. And I've had a couple times in my life where I've been really overcommitted. When we built our house, we had our house Amish built, and then I did the plumbing, heating, electric. We did the painting, staining, insulating.
Jeez.
And so there's a tremendous amount of time that I was out of service. It was about a year that I would go to work, I'd come home, do that, go to bed, and then Saturday I'd get up and work for 12 or 14 hours and go to bed, and then Sunday go to church and then take a nap and then do a little something, go to bed. So I had that particular time.
Sabbath.
And then there was another time that at change of employment, my employer gave me the opportunity to go to college. And I went to college late. I didn't go when I traditionally should have. So I went as an adult. So I was working full-time, went to college full-time. I crammed 4 years into 4 years. I was also an elder in the church, and at the time our pastor had retired, and so I was on the pastoral search team. And so there was this 4 year time when everything had to be scheduled really tight.
Wow.
And to get everything done. And during those times, I recognized the concept that every dad needs to spend time with each of his kids individually. And every husband needs to spend time with his wife individually. And to be healthy, every guy needs to spend time with some guys individually and in groups. And then every guy needs to spend some friend time with his wife and their corporate friends.
Wow.
And I started to do the math with that and went, this is impossible.
Yeah.
And so either God is requiring us to do something that's impossible, or he expects us to manage that well. And so in that impossible balance, one of those things is, in order for me to be healthy in all of these things that I am required to do well in, I need to do things that are important for me, and I need that iron sharpens iron. And also as we age, the other thing that becomes really obvious is nothing lasts. Everything, all these things that you're going to do the rest of your life, they don't work out that way.
Wow.
And something's going to get in the way of our friendship, and it's going to be somebody's health or something, and something's going to change. And I recognize that, and I try and keep that in the periphery without looking at it head on all of the time. But I know we have some things ahead of us that I already dread. We both have those things that are closer for us probably than for most of you. And so it's important to take those opportunities now, because I can do it right now.
Wow.
But I don't know when that's going to end. Randy and I lived in the same town. We're always going to be able to travel together. And then his life took him a different path, and he moved. And then that ended. And then we did some other things, and then he moved, and then that ended. And each time it was just important to, if you can do it, do those right things when you can. so that we're not looking back saying, well, I wanted to do all these things. I knew people that did. But I just don't want to live a life of regrets. And so I guess maybe I am more motivated than I recognize that it's important to do those things. And so I want to do them when we can.
There's another element to this is that our friendship is not compartmentalized. Our friendship is not in a box that's just my friendship with Ron. He has several times stopped by my folks' house when I'm in, visiting my folks in Pennsylvania. He ended up staying for dinner. And my mom said, "Thanks for coming." And he's like, "I invited myself." But she will feed him anytime he's there. He's done trips where he flew into Pittsburgh and he had to go to work the next morning with like a red-eye flight. So rather than go all the way to his house, my parents just left the door unlocked and he walked in and slept and left before my mom even never saw my mom, just in and out of the house. Deb, his daughters, was it Courtney? Was the one who tried to figure out why I was her uncle.
Oh, yeah.
They've called me Uncle Randy their entire lives, his daughters and his son. I am just Uncle Randy, but Courtney was trying to figure out why I was really her uncle, and she was college age before she realized I wasn't really
Wow.
an uncle. How is Randy my uncle? Well, he isn't.
And then one of my daughters, though, for her honeymoon, she, I don't remember what the flight was because she contacted Randy, and she and her husband, I think that's the first time you met Brandon, wasn't it?
No, it was at the wedding.
Oh, you were at the wedding. But it was the wedding and then the honeymoon. They ended up staying at his place and then seeing some stuff in the area of San Diego just because they were in the area of Uncle Randy. And so he put them up. And then since then, I also found out, which I knew nothing about, but she contacted Randy because she had some friends. You know more about this than I do, but he ended up taking my daughter and two of her friends out for dinner somewhere, and they ended up spending time together.
Well, they asked to use the house because she knew I had the house in Vista. This was just a year and a half ago. Danielle, she was having a girls' weekend with friends of hers from college or high school.
Yeah, from work.
From work,
From high school.
and so the three of them were just coming out to San Diego for a weekend away, and she asked if she could use the house. So I said, well, I got to clean it up. There's not much furniture there. So the girls came out and just slept in the house, and then Naomi and I took them out to dinner, and yeah. So our lives are not. The friendship isn't just it's not just Ron and I.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Deb. He knows Naomi. I know his son's middle name is Randall.
That's
Unrelated.
He was disappointed to find out he wasn't named after Randall from Monsters, Inc.
I'm not gonna lie, that was the first thing that popped in my head.
That was the first thing that popped into his head. He had to be
Amazing.
corrected.
Yeah. So just the fact that the friendship, that's one of the things that makes it deep and makes it special, is that it isn't tied. It's not just something that happens between Ron and I.
Well, what an amazing friendship. Definitely something that I want, and I think everyone listening would definitely want a type of relationship like that. So we appreciate you coming on the podcast. I thought it'd be fun to end it by testing this friendship. To see how much you guys really know about each other. So I Googled a friend's quiz. So the first question is, what is the name of Rachel and Ross's grandmother?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. Sorry.
That's such a good joke. I was hoping you
Sorry,
would make that
sorry.
joke.
Wrong favorite quiz. Okay, so I want you to tell me, what is Ron's favorite movie?
Oh, that's easy.
Don't tell. He
Can't
has
say
he
Ron.
has to tell us.
No, I know, but you ought to be able to get that easy.
Come on, Randy.
Well, Ron knows it. Do you know it, Randy?
Ron knows Ron's favorite movie.
Oh, what's
Ron doesn't
Ron's-
do favorites.
There you go.
Wow! Oh my god! Okay,
I
hold
told
on.
you this last
Yes,
time.
I was ready to keep that.
Okay, hold up.
He
This is
literally said
easy.
in accountability, Ron doesn't do favorites.
If Ron doesn't do
Ron
favorites, that
come to
really just
accountability.
ruins this
Ron, what's your
whole
favorite color? Ron doesn't do favorites.
Okay, what was Ron's first pet?
Oh,
Gosh, it's the... Literally the first 20 questions just blew up.
favorite
Favorite pet,
Yeah, Ron doesn't do
movie,
favorites.
band.
No, I get credit for answering 20 questions right.
Alright, you got 20 so
You
far.
win.
You didn't win it.
He won.
Probably the dachshund I remember his parents having, but I don't know if that was the absolute first pet. But I can't remember the name. But it was
First
the
real
dachshund
pet, you know?
your parents had?
That was a.
He
I
doesn't even
kind
know.
of had a dog before that, and then we had cats around the house. That, yeah, if you don't know, I don't know either. Yeah,
Good answer.
All right, next question. If let me rephrase this question. If Randy, Randy probably has favorites. What's Randy's favorite type of food?
I would hope it's one.
well, Randy has told me that he has adopted the concept of not having favorites because he,
dang it, Randy.
he likes that. But
Come on, you're supposed to disagree.
I think it is
Don't you remember
everything
earlier?
other than fish and crayfish. They're at the bottom of the list because they're at the bottom of the sea.
Okay.
Nice.
Is that true?
So
That's
puns
true.
are
Absolutely.
on
I
the
don't
table
eat
again.
fish. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you do like hates?
Do I do hate?
Like, do you have
What do you hate
things
the
that you
most?
hate the most?
It's surveys.
What's that?
Who is this?
Unbelievable.
All right. I'm gonna kill myself.
Hates favorites.
So you guys probably went to the same school, huh?
No.
No.
Okay. What was the name of Ron's school?
Harbor Creek, the Huskies.
Harvard Creek Huskies.
What was the
Go
name
Huskies.
of Randy's school?
McLean Lancers. General
McLean.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Like John McClane.
Okay. I was gonna. Where did you grow up? But that's kind of.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
All right. This quiz has been officially ruined.
Let's go back
for a
to
lot
the,
of
the
reasons.
other French quiz.
Let's go back to the
Back to
Friends.
the-
What's Joey's middle name?
Yeah. Let's go back to the TV show Friends. Anyways,
Well,
well.
what road did Ron grow up on? On David Road.
Okay. Let me think. I know this.
David Road.
Oh, sorry. You were asking.
David Road. What road? What road I grew up on?
Ferry. Man. Ferry Road.
Because he's a fairy.
You are what you
No.
grew up on. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Sorry.
No, there's a
It's
joke behind that.
There's a joke behind it.
Okay.
There's a joke behind that, Johnny. You're not involved.
Okay, he knows that my parents live on Van Camp, but the road leading to my parents' road is Fry Road, F-R-Y.
Okay.
But the first GPS I ever got thought that was an abbreviation and kept calling it Ferry Road.
Okay. One of those
Oh,
inside jokes.
what was
you know?
I think I know this question, so I hope you know it. What was Randy's first car?
Well, everybody knows that. 1970 Hornet.
Oh,
Was it the
wow,
black
that's
and
very
red?
cool. I can't believe I
Black
didn't know that.
exterior,
Interior.
red interior? Yeah.
Ron's
This was
car
an
was a
excellent
Chevelle.
quiz.
Chevelle.
Yeah, but his best car was the Firebird. He had a 76 Firebird Formula.
Yeah.
That was his best car.
Well, thank you guys for joining us.
This was good.
It was a great podcast. I appreciate you guys.
This wasn't just somewhat a good conversation. This was definitely a conversation.
This was Sharp Iron.
Sharp Iron.
Sharp Iron.
We're changing the names.
No, we're not.